Real talk, real impact, unfiltered and unapologetic. This is FemmeIcon.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. This is Mahvish Akhtar with another episode of FemmeIcon. And today we are doing a review of the book Home Fire by Kamila Shamsie. Let me see. Can I see it? Yeah. Okay. So, she's from Karachi, lived in the UK and the US and studied in both places. So her perspective is, I'm sure, coming from her own life, a lot of it. And this book is obviously a fictional story about a family, siblings. And we'll get to it in a minute. And this is obviously, very, very, it's a loaded book. It talks about so many issues that hit close to home for a lot of us. Because now we have become a global community and we do travel a whole lot more than previously done. तो बहुत सारे issues हैं जो हमको not just अगर हम overseas रह रहे हैं, but even if we are just traveling, we face and definitely hear about on the news जो इसमें सामने आते हैं, but we can't discuss every single one of them right now. तो एक जो proper book review उस तरह से हो that we would do face to face, so we would, have like in a book club or a reading of the book. Obviously, we can't do that here, but I will touch on one or two of the topics that we can go over that आजकल के atmosphere में that make sense for us to talk about and for us to bring up. Actually, आजकल भी नहीं कहना चाहिए because it makes sense at any time. It has been making sense for a very long time, but I think right now it's come to, जैसे कहते हैं ना कि almost like it's come to fruition. May not be in a very good way, लेकिन सब कुछ सामने आ गया है. हमारे कम से कम सामने आ गया, हमें पता लग गया है who's our friend, who's our foe. Everything is clear. I feel like there is no हमारे लिए अब मज़ीद ये नहीं है कि maybe we're mistaken about this person, maybe we're mistaken about so and so's identity. तो वो चीज़ अब ख़त्म हो गई है. Because there are a lot of innuendos in this book, a lot of what does this mean? What does this say about that person? What does that say about this person in this book? But I feel like अब वो चीज़ सब ख़त्म हो गई है. So basically the story is about three siblings, two twins and a sister. And they're from Britain, moved to the US. One of them, the brother, one of the twins is the brother, two sisters and a brother. One of the twins is the brother. He decided to, I don't want to give away the book because it is a good read. It's interesting. Joins ISIS. That's a whole another thing. One of the sisters the twin sister wants to bring him back. And then she gets involved with the Home Secretary or Defense Secretary's son, who's also of Pakistani descent. So these kids are of Pakistani descent. Gets involved with the son of the Defense Secretary or Home Secretary, I think. And so he can help talk to his father to bring him back home. By home, she means she's thinking England, but what obviously that's not what everybody else is thinking in the larger context of the country and the, if any public is involved, the reporters and whatnot. So that's the gist of it. And both girls seem to have known the boy, जो Secretary, Home Secretary का जो बेटा है, who's of Pakistani descent as well. And they're both kind of involved. So the story kind of underlines, okay, so are they both interested? Especially the twin, is she interested in him only for his brother? Or is she really interested in him? So that kind of stays back and forth until the end. And we're not really sure. And is it okay to do something like that? And that's, the love triangle type thing where, and they've shown these girls to be the older sister, to be a little bit more innocent, a bit more loyal to her roots, her religion, herself even, and the younger sister to be the twin to be a little bit more out there and a risk taker, if you will. And so that's the main story. And she's considered prettier, more beautiful, the twin, and she's considered to be a bit of a flirt, a player. So all those things play a part. Now, how religion plays into it is that they do hijab. They're both of them have their own interpretation of it. The younger one, when she's involved with the boy, she says things like, well, I do it when I want to, from whom I want to, and, such things of that sort. So they explore all of these different ideas of what religion means to different people, because there's the boy, the brother, who interpreted religion as his father did, because he was also a part of ISIS, a terrorist group, and went into that direction. And then there are the sisters. One of them is very moderate, you would say. The other one is, she's playing both sides, kind of. She's in the middle somewhere. But then she takes it off, takes out the hijab, or pulls back from her religion for the benefit of this guy, because she's trying to manipulate. And then she goes back to who she is for her brother. And, so there's a lot of complicated emotions and using the religion for their benefit. There's an underlying, a very powerful, interesting underlying idea of not only other people use our religion for our benefit, we do it too. Right? We do it too. We play with जो outwardly हमारे जो वो हैं actions हैं हमारे religion के, हिजाब हो गया, नमाज हो गई, dressing हो गई, चाहे औरतों की है, मर्दों की है, we use them too to our benefit, whether by doing more of it or pulling back on it. So ISIL is also a symbol of that. That's being used as a lot of different things. There's an agenda that's being pushed, right? It has nothing to do with Islam in general. It has to do with a political agenda, and that's being pushed by using certain symbols, certain thought processes, certain words being said to people to, push them towards something. So there's a lot going on. But what I want to first talk about, what I want to pick on first, is the concept of othering. That no matter who you are, where you are, you can be othered. Right? And I think we've talked about this before. So, this boy, his name is Pervez, the brother. He grew up in London, and at the age of 19, he decided to join ISIS. He, at some point, somewhere, was othered by an entire community. So that's the concept I want to hit. And then the way this starts is the oldest sister is at the airport going from the UK to the US, and her experience at the airport. Any of you who've traveled, especially in recent years, after the 2000s or 2001 onward, from anywhere to the US, any Muslim area to the US with a brown skin, You know that experience. The way people look at you and at the immigration area and the kind of questions they ask you. We've all been there. Though that experience, the way she's, I think I have, excuse me. So she's coming from Britain and she says something of the sort where they ask her and she says, I'm British, and the answer from the American immigration officer is, you're British? And I can absolutely, imagine that scene in my head. And that's also points to good writing that I can imagine in my head. But and the kind of questions that are being asked, which are impossible to answer, she's telling them where she's going to go, what she's going to do, and questions like, you were the manager of a dry cleaning shop and now you're on your way to a PhD programming in sociology in Amherst, Massachusetts? Yes. How did that happen? So that line of questioning is really like you're talking to a criminal. And also, how did that happen? Well, that is how you proceed. You do all sorts of odd jobs and uncomfortable, you are in uncomfortable situations while you're pursuing your education. That's a very common way of, proceeding. So for them to ask this question and to act like it's not possible, or, it's to make her uncomfortable and to doubt her ability a little bit. And so she answers. And she says something like, I took care of my siblings and we were orphaned at a young age and twins and all that. And then now they're grown up, I can go back to my life. And you're going back to your life at Amherst, Massachusetts. So you see the tone, and I can hear the tone because I've heard that tone over and over again in so many different ways, in so many different circumstances, whether it be immigration, whether it be job interviews, that you are not being honest and you are not telling the truth, or there is something wrong with that story. Even though they know कि इस story में कुछ नहीं है, but they just want to throw curveballs at you. And then she talks about her identity as a Britisher. And do you consider yourself British? The man said, I am British. But do you consider yourself British? I've lived here all my life. She meant there was no other country of which she could feel herself a part. But the words came out sounding evasive. So, and these kinds of interrogations are, the purpose is to, they say the purpose is to figure out who you are, what your background is, and to protect the country that you're entering, and whatnot. But really, it's not. We know what the purpose is. The purpose is to make those who look different from what they think the standard for that country should be, to make those people feel like we don't belong. But the problem in that is when you have no other place to belong, it's really hard to feel that we don't belong, right? अब ये कैसे हो कि in a real scenario that when you live in a place and you belong to that place because you've lived there your entire life or most of your life, how can you feel like you belong somewhere else? I used to get asked this question all the time. Okay, where are you from? And I would say, I'm from here. No, but where are you really from? Where are your parents from? Where is your family from? Where are your ancestors from? Where did your parents come from? So, and this is in the 90s, I would say, from Pakistan, because I had learned this is the answer they're looking for, so I'll just give it to them. And then, at least in the 90s and the early 2000s, what they would ask me after that would be, oh, Pakistan? Is that in Texas? So you see, the reason I mentioned this is the level of understanding of where we are and who we are is completely irrelevant to them. What's important to them is, I want to let you know that you don't belong here and you're not from here. Just want to let you know that I see you as the other. I have no idea if you named a country or a state or a city. I just asked you this question so you know that I recognize you as someone who doesn't belong here because of the way you dress, because of the way you look, your face, and your, I don't know, maybe I'm with my mom or with somebody else who looks more, immigrant-like than I might at that time. So that was the idea, to make sure I understand that, or we understand that. So you see, that is the othering that happened at that time. And they were subtle about it because it wasn't okay to treat people in that way. It wasn't okay to make people feel like they don't belong. But then 9/11 happened, and then it became more and more okay because there were caricatures, I would say, because there were drawings of certain type of people. And it became more and more okay to judge people who looked like that. Right? There were, and I know I've talked about it over and over again, how many of our, family members were stopped and interrogated and beaten and God knows what, all over the US, UK, anywhere, Canada, everywhere. And that continued. The othering did not stop. And it hasn't stopped up until now. Now, actually, it has solidified. Right? And that is the othering this book's talking about. Even to the point where, and this book raises a very, very important point and brings out a very important point, that even people from within us have othered us. And that's the second point I'm going to talk about, which is so, so important. Do we see these characters like the Defense Home Secretary or whoever he may be? He is from Pakistani descent. Now, he has completely distanced himself from, please let me know if you cannot hear me or if there's a problem in my voice. He has completely distanced himself from his country, his religion, his people, completely. He actually, on paper, in front of his constituents, kind of questions the values and the culture of religion, Pakistani values, Islamic culture, and all those things, right? That's what she writes. And that is how he stays and controls the narrative and stays in control and wins people's votes and whatnot. And this is interesting. And this is his son is the person that twin sister Anika gets involved with to get her eventually brother's body out of Syria, I think he's in. Now, this is he did this to escape the otherness, right? How do you succeed in a place, in an environment where your skin color, your ethnicity, your religion, everything is persecuted. Where you cannot get people to sit and listen to your point of view, because before you open your mouth, you're perceived and judged as a certain being, as a certain type of thing. I mean, the word for it is stereotype, but if we don't use that word. So how do you get people to listen to you? You distance yourself from that, right? You say, no, I don't believe in that thing that makes me that. I don't believe in those ideas that make me this way. And that's what he did. Whether you agree with it or not, whether we think that a person like that is doing the right thing or not, that is what he did. Right? And he doubled down on it, rather than saying, look, I take the good of it and I deny the bad of it, like the terrorism and all of those things, but I'll take the good and I'll apply it to this culture and this life. But he denied all of it. And he did make something of himself. So he's othering himself. And that's a very important point, because a lot of us have done that. A lot of us who are trying to survive outside of Pakistan in different countries have done that, because that seems to be the only way to survive. उन countries में यही एक तरीका है, या तो you own yourself, your religion, your country, and who you are deep down, and then really own up to it and come and deal with whatever comes your way. Or you just say, I get it. Everybody from that side of the world, they're terrorists, they're crazy people, and yeah, I don't adhere to that way of life. I like being here, freedom and this and that, and whatever you guys are selling, I'm buying. And a lot of people do that because that makes them feel safer. That makes them feel like their life will be easier. But does that happen? That's the real question, right? In real life, does that happen? Now, isme to irony was that her son falls right back into, with this girl who leads him to this whole mess. But in reality, you can't escape it, because pretty much the same thing. You can't escape it in reality either, because they'll see you as brown no matter what. Because they're not looking at it practically. They're not looking at it as these people are not good because they have done something bad, because inki koi issue hai ya koi problem hai. They're just looking at it from the most superficial and illiterate point of view. It's literally about the color of your skin. Nothing else. So they're not going to care that you agree with them. They just care that you are a shade darker than them, that you are not pure white. And that's all. So what you think and how you want to assimilate and how you want to be like them, they'll appreciate it, but they're not going to care. And up until this point, people like me, we were telling others that, look, it doesn't matter how much you tell them that you belong with them and you agree with their way of life, and you talk about their type of free speech and their type of, freedom of expression and their type of, way of life, or whatever they want to call it. You will not be a part of it when they actually apply whatever they're saying that they're going to eventually. It doesn't matter how much you want to be a part of it, whether it's actually you want to be part of it, or you're just saying that because you want to remain here and not, be a collateral with the rest of us. And it actually turns out that it doesn't matter. Abhi jo what's happening in the US and the UK, all of these immigration laws, ये नहीं देखा जा रहा इस वक्त कि because this is the end result of all of this and the conversation that's being brought up in this book, really, कि अभी ये नहीं देखा जा रहा कि are you a terrorist? Are you doing something that is bad for the country? Are you an actual patriot? No. If you are brown, then automatically you must be an immigrant and automatically you must be kicked out of the country. If you look at the discussion around all of this, the government right now in the US has deported people who are born citizens of the US. And then now naturalized citizens these are people who have had green cards and then became citizens after having their green cards for some time. Now they're being kicked out of the US. And these are not people who have committed any kind of crime. Their only fault is that they're brown, that they came from different countries that are around the world. But these people are not illegal. They're just people who came from different places. And the interesting thing about this, and now there's a campaign, and I'm sure if you look for it, actually, you'll see it. And I'm sure a lot of you who are interested in these kinds of things, I'm sure you have started to see it. That all of these areas, a lot of these, the Americas, are indigenously brown. Native Americans, Mexicans. Mexico is not across the border from anything in the US. The Mexicans, Native Americans, they were all kind of related. It was all one land. When these people came from Europe, there were no borders there. So Mexican tribes stay or Native American tribes stay. They were all tribes in all this in North America, South America. Ye sab different tribes they were all living together. I mean, inke jhagde hote the, they were fighting with each other, but they were living, they were all brown. Every single one of them. Until these guys came from England and, all the European places. And then the Spaniards came from Spain into Mexico, and then they kind of killed these people off. Meaning they fought with each other, but they did not fight in a way that they would, completely ethnically cleanse each other and just commit genocide against each other, because they were actually one people in a way. So these places belong to them. So Mexico for North America is not across the border. North America and Mexico is like one is one place. And belongs all to all of these people, like Native Americans and Mexicans, and well, now they're called Mexicans, but जो भी इनका नाम बोलते थे, the Aztec and Incas or whatever they were called. I'm sorry, I'm not good with these kind of names. Believe it or not, they don't teach you this detailed history in history classes in the US. But I do know that these are the American people. All of these are American people. So they're being told to leave, to leave America to the white people. Right? अब ये इसकी continuation है ना कि आहिस्ता आहिस्ता पहले ढके छुपे होता था, फिर 9/11 के बाद जरा थोड़ा सा और खुल गया कि these faces, brown faces were plastered as this is what terrorists look like. फिर और clear होने लगा कि okay, we can say कि terrorism वहाँ से आता है, हमारे part of the world से आता है. That's what they started saying. People started believing it. फिर थोड़ा सा odd time passed, and then we had more people saying more things. And then terrorism was exclusively a Muslim thing. So this started to get more and more solidified, even though terrorism, as we all know, is just any act of terror, any act of violence that terrorizes a bunch of people, that is committed as a group, right? So if you look at it from that point of view, then there is a lot of terrorism that happens within the United States, or actually we would just say United States, that has nothing to do with religion, but it happens in the United States. There are mass shootings almost every day. And they have nothing to do with any religion or Muslims or anything like that. These are just the things that happen within the US, but they're not called terrorism. They're called mass shootings, they're called incidents, and they're, unfortunate, but they're not called terrorism, which they are though. And they can be, Google it, they can be listed, but they're not listed as terror. Whenever you hear the word terrorist or terrorism, you're going to think of, even our heads go to Muslim countries and Muslim people and our men, right? Our head goes to somebody who looks like our men, which is extremely unfortunate. But if we're looking at the society जिसने हमारे जहन में ये image डाला है, उनके biggest terrorists are their young men from age 20 to 35 or 40. सबसे ज़्यादा white American men 20 to 35, सबसे ज़्यादा जो crimes commit करते हैं guns के साथ, gun violence से, वो इस age group में white young men करते हैं. So the image should be opposite. This has just been fed into us because it was easier. ये करने के बाद now it's gotten to the point कि जब ये चीज़ें हो रही हैं कि immigrants को निकाला जा रहा है और इस तरह के laws बनाए जा रहे हैं, तो people are less resistant to that. But it's easier for everybody to say, okay, do it, no problem. So here we're talking about Parvez Pasha. I don't want to read too much from it because I do want you guys to read it. So these kids were also orphaned. I mentioned that. So Ayman, the boy, is the Home Secretary's boy is talking to Anika, the sister. Trust me, he'd said to Anika, I know my father. I know how to spin it, so he'll agree. But that wasn't a spin, it was a threat. How could he possibly do that to this man who had always offered him the most unconditional of loves? And why was his father looking at him so strangely? He was speaking to his father about, he'd given Anika his word that he'll speak to his father about this situation. And now he was kind of stuck. And why was his father looking at him so strangely? As if he knew that his son had come here with betrayal in his heart. So he talks to his father, and then eventually he figures out that he's talking about Parvez Pasha's sister. His father caught a hold of him around the neck, half headlock, half embrace. You stupid boy, my stupid boy. And then here it's interesting how it shows what kind of relationship she had with him and how she had pursued him. And just what we were talking about, how slowly a person changes and, kind of decides which direction that we're going to go into, and how gradually we become desperate for one thing or the other, right? So over here, she didn't see any way out for her brother, and so gradually she went towards Eamon, this boy, and she it never really, at least I don't think that it explains if she's doing these things with a plan in her head, or if this is just something that's coming to her naturally, where it says that his father, John, my life, a word his father was now saying as he held his son. So his father is saying this to him as she had said to him. John, she had called him, kissing his eye, his mouth, his cheeks, his nose, when he'd said he would speak to his father. John, my life, a word his father was now saying as he held his son. So, here is a Muslim girl who seemingly is a practicing Muslim, does hijab. How would she be doing this? Is it that she is not a devout enough Muslim, or is it that she is desperate, or is it, which one is it? And obviously he fell for it. So here's another question. Like we were talking about, you gradually, all of it is a gradual process. That in our heads, जैसे हम ये बात कर रहे थे कि अभी, in our heads, terrorist attack, and we think it's a Muslim man, right? That's the image. That's the look that we get, which is terrible, because most terrorist acts within the U.S. committed by white young men. So this is the same thing. It seeps in. She gradually became something she didn't want to, but she did do it. So why is he letting her manipulate her? First of all, he's shown to be a simple dude. And the second thing is that she's using the same words in the same way of same kind of affection, same way of showing affection as his father did. और उसके father ने seems like उसको politics और इन सब चीज़ों से दूर रखा है ताकि वो इन चीज़ों में ना पड़े, but it had the opposite effect, right? Okay, he got fooled by something maybe he shouldn't have been fooled by. Had he known more, maybe he wouldn't have been fooled by. So his father did this, and the reason his father did this was so that he had options. His son would have options, and we're going back to the same idea that if you want to, people think, brown people, and now it doesn't even matter if you're Muslim or not. It's just if you are of any color other than white, that if you want to survive, you have to act like a white person. Maybe even, I don't know, change your color of your skin. How you do that, I don't know. That the only way to survive is to just let go of who you are, let go of your heritage, let go of your life in any form, right? Your priority should just be to please the might, and that's the only way you survive. And it's people who think that are not wrong. We've seen it happen over and over again. इसमें कोई ये नहीं है कि they're not wrong. लेकिन बात सिर्फ ये है कि is this the way to live? Is this the way for the whole world to survive? So, my fault, his father repeated sadly. I say it's your mother's doing. But I'm the one who never wanted you to know what it feels like to have doors closed in your face. to have to fight your way in. So now he's, of course, growing up as a Pakistani Muslim in London probably wasn't easy and isn't easy. We all know that. So he wanted to spare his son of that. To have to fight your way in, I didn't think it would make you so sure of yourself, so entitled that you would stop to ask why a girl that would have time for a public school boy who lives off his mother because he can, and who has no ambition beyond beating his own high score in computer games. What have you done? I haven't done anything. The officers who were called in when her brother left were concerned about her. So her dad understands the kind of trouble he's in and understands why she was interested in him. But he really doesn't. He placed an Ayman's mobile phone on the desk. 23 missed calls from Anika Pasha. Ayman stood up. Something's wrong. On that we agree. So he doesn't understand why she was interested in him. His father gets it. And of course, his father still thinks that he did the right thing by keeping him away from his own self, his people, his, So what I want to, and we'll go towards the end, and talk about what. So I want to talk about this point that what we've just seen when I was there in the 90s and in 2000s came, and a lot of the kids grew up, around the kids that grew up after 9/11 and the 2000s. I saw a lot of that behavior, that attitude from parents that, क्या ज़रूरत है बच्चों को अपनी पाकिस्तानी आइडेंटिटी या मुस्लिम आइडेंटिटी शो करने की, and don't talk about this and don't talk about that, and of course things that are like shouldn't be talked about. That's okay, don't go overboard, but religion की बात नहीं करो और उर्दू में बात नहीं करो, Arabic में बात नहीं करो. All these things became very common at that time. And it used to bother me a lot, because what would it do? What would it accomplish to put away our identities, to stop being Muslim in front of the world? It would almost solidify our guilt, as if we were guilty and we had something to hide. Right? Because that just means, yeah, you're right, we have to stop doing certain things because those things are not okay. There were even some people who said things to the point of, don't walk out, don't wear your hijab outside, don't cover yourselves, because that that makes you a target. It probably did. So these things became more and more. And then there was a point where it calmed down. It became less problematic, of course. But then in the acts of, and we became comfortable because we just thought, okay, now people understand what actually happened. It's not that bad. Everybody has good and bad people in their communities. It's all good. They got Osama bin Laden, I guess. It's fine. But see, that mindset that had seeped in because all of the media attention that it had gotten, that mindset had solidified. You see, it wasn't about a group of people doing something, and it wasn't about in those countries certain type of people having a mindset. What it was about is that a whole ethnic, I don't even want to say ethnic because white is not an ethnicity, I don't know. A whole type of people thinking they're better than the entire world. And actually they are the minority. So I don't even know. They're thinking that they are better than the entire world, than everyone else. And that mindset, it didn't die down, it grew from the inside. Their hate, their dislike for everyone else kept growing. We stayed oblivious. And not just oblivious, we kept trying to please them in different ways. ठीक है ना, वो एक चीज हो गई and we were like, okay, मसला हल हो गया, हमारे सामने से हट गया. उनकी hate for us didn't end. We went back to our normal situation, जो कि क्या थी? To please them. Because not just that they're white people, but they are in power. Right? अगर हम जनरल पब्लिक की बात करते हैं, कंट्रीज की बात करते हैं, जो लोग हमको कंट्रोल करते हैं, हमारी कंट्रीज हो गई, हमारे जो पावरफुल लोग हैं, the rich and the famous, what are they doing? They're pleasing the white people. US, UK, Germany, France, all of this powerful people, gore, they're trying to please them. And most of us are too. Because we believe in their superiority as well. उसका क्या नुकसान हुआ कि they already, whether we bow down to them or not, they believe in their superiority. But उसका हमारे also on top of it, हमारी भी जो उनकी worshipping है, उसका नुकसान क्या हुआ कि now that is solidified even more so. And at this point, they believe, because वो cycle चलता चला गया ना, and at this point, they believe they're unstoppable. I mean, look at what they're doing. I don't believe that they're unstoppable because only Allah is unstoppable, and we know that. But they're acting like right now that they're unstoppable. They kill who they want, they maim who they want, bomb who they want. Like nobody can stop them. So this is what we've done. They pulled back a little bit thinking, okay, let them think that they have the power or that we have, taken our boot off of them for a little bit. But we didn't stop licking that boot, even when that was away from us. And that was the problem. We still kept telling them, you control us, it's okay, we still think you're superior to us. And that's where the problem is. Because after that point, ISIS was done. Things were actually getting better in terms of the shape of the world. But हमारी अक्लें जो हैं, that those were still worshipping these white people. So that's why things are still where they are. And actually, I feel like it has been a blessing in disguise in a way that everything is out in the open. There are no secrets and there is nobody's hidden. There are no hidden agendas anymore. Everybody knows everybody. So, yeah, these are some I want to read the end in what seems like a news report, which is really interesting, and things happen and some characters get killed and a lot of different things happen. And I want to read what is supposed to be a news report, which is really interesting, which is something that you would see in every newspaper, even right now. We see news reports right now these days like that. When Palestine-Israel issue comes up, conflict comes up, and apparently it's a war, when you're relentlessly bombing people who do not have a way to defend themselves, and they're all civilians. You're bombing them. Apparently, it's a war and it's a conflict somehow. You hear things pretty similar, which is really interesting. So, and then you have to really read between the lines. You have to really read between the lines. It's so there's one here that she writes, and it's brilliant. She's also the author, Kamila Shamsie. She's also a journalist. So this is brilliantly done. This says hijabi, Pervez Pasha's twin sister engineered sex threats with Home Secretary's son. And this heading is brilliant. I mean, this is the kind of heading that would exist, right? The blame all goes to the Pashas. It's not about the government and how the government's treating its citizens and how the situation came about. No, it's all about those 3 kids. I mean, they were 19, right? So no, it's not about that. Anika Nickers Pasha, a 19-year-old twin sister of Muslim fanatic Pervez Pasha, has been revealed as her brother's accomplice. He hunted down the Home Secretary's son, Ayman 24, and used sex to try and brainwash him into convincing his father to allow her terrorist brother back into England. So you see all these, he's 24, she's 19, he's older, he needed to know better, right? If he agreed to help her, there's more responsibility on him than on her. She is 19, she is attached to her brother, she wants him home, he actually ran away, so he wants out. I mean, and not gonna read the whole thing. And then inside daughter and sister of Muslim terrorist with history of secret sex life, the exclusive story of Nickers Pasha, and then it goes on to say more things. Again, I'm not reading a whole lot of it because I would want you guys to do that yourself. And these kinds of stories are so common. It's I've worked for a lot of different types of newspapers, and it's interesting when you give them a story and they're like, no, change this word here, this word there, and you're like, nope, not gonna do it, and your story gets scrapped because you will not change words, inflammatory words. So yeah, this is quite interesting. And then there was another one where there's one more that I wanted to read. I don't know if I marked it or not. Where Karamat has said something about whether his body would be able to come back. He had given a statement that Pervez would not be able to come back because his citizenship had been revoked. His British citizenship had been revoked. So his body would be sent to Pakistan, which was so he said something like, I'm sorry, I should have noted this down. I thought I did. Yeah. So it did say that the citizenship was revoked, and the words used were amazing. Citizenship is a privilege, not a right. To say citizenship is a privilege is not a right or birthright. The human rights campaign group Liberty issued a statement to say removing the right to have rights is a new law. Washing our hands of potential terrorists is dangerously short-sighted. And statelessness is a tool of deports, not Democrats. So this was a response from human rights campaign groups, or what the Home Secretary said. I'm trying to find what he exactly said. He said it in the same exact piece. Yeah. So he said that this was a privilege, having the British citizenship was a privilege and not right, and his citizenship has been revoked, and then this was a response from campaigns, and I find this very interesting because citizenship to a country is not a privilege. This is a right. You live there long enough and you become the citizen of the country because you are more likely than not contributing to that country. You're paying taxes there. You have a job. You're contributing to the society you live in. You are a member of that community. You're involved. So you are, a member of that whole organization, the country, the whole organization. So no, you can't just be. Your citizenship cannot just be revoked. And it's interesting that this is actually what happens now. I mean, this is a story. She predicted it. This is obviously fiction, but she predicted it really well. I don't know if that was something that happened at that time in Britain. It didn't even happen in the US at that time. But, and it's a very recent phenomenon. This was written in, I think, 27, I believe. I'm sorry, 2017. So I don't think this was something that was happening at that time, that, if you don't like somebody, you just revoke their citizenship or green card or whatever, what have you, and kick them out. But this is fairly new. But yeah, it's interesting that at that time people were questioning it. And she was thinking that this is something that happens or could happen, or maybe was starting to happen. But yeah, this is, it's an interesting book. I would definitely recommend it. I am saying it again. I'm not a huge fiction fan. I read it in like 4 or 5 days. I ordered it. That's why some details were hazy, because I was reading it and just writing down, making notes and sticky notes for important details that I wanted to talk about. And I missed a lot of things that are worth talking about and worth going in detail of. But I just reread the things that I wanted to talk about right now. And there's a lot to talk about. And seems like I do understand her reason for writing it. If you've been in these kinds of countries and these places, these are issues that, to others, it seems like, we know this happens. But if you've lived in these places, it goes deeper than just you hear it and you know it. It's not just in your mind, it's in your heart. Because it hurts to feel it constantly. It hurts to be told all the time that you don't belong in a certain place. It hurts to hear that everyone around you, or most people around you, think that your people are not worthy of things that the other part of the world feels entitled to. So I understand the urge to write about these things and the urge to explain to the world in all sorts of different words and expressions what that part of the world is like. And what it does to people like us. So, and that is the intention, because what happens is कि हम जैसे लोगों के साथ जो वहाँ पे रहते हैं, वहाँ पे से होके आते हैं, यहाँ पे टाइम गुजारते हैं, ये सब कुछ होता है, लेकिन फिर यहाँ पे जो हमारे लोग हैं, they're dying to go there and experience all of that humiliation and all of that behavior, not knowing that it's really not worth it. Really, really not worth it. So yeah, that's all I have to say about this. And I hope this was something that you enjoyed and was worth it, and you would go read the book. And let me show you the book one more time. Ignore all of my pieces of... There you go. If you don't have it, go buy it. I would recommend it. And I'll see you next time.